Hey, Tom Stewart here. Our guest today is Ajia Holiday. This is Smart Business Moves. It's Wednesday again. Woohoo!
It's Wednesday, halfway through the week.
No kidding. I'm going to be off for the rest of the week, so it's Friday for some
Oh,
of
that doesn't even count then.
you. How are you, Ajia?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really well. Yeah.
What are we going to be talking about today?
So I'm doing a little bit, talking a bit about what I'll be talking about at convention in a couple of weeks, but mostly about data-driven decisions and kind of how to use what you've done in the past to get you where you are and to change things to take where you are to a better future, to a more profitable, successful future. So yeah, talking a lot about how to use data in a profitable way and not just looking at numbers to look at numbers, which is something I have fallen into,
Or not to look at numbers at all?
or not
Right?
to look at numbers at all. Yeah,
You
to
know,
have actions in place so you don't even need to use the numbers.
it's like, how are things going? Good. It's like, yeah,
And
yeah. How
how good
so?
are they going? Ways to
You know,
measure that.
sales are up. Really? And you know, it's hard for us though to speak in numbers. It's the natural go-to move is to, I guess they would call it being subjective. Things are
Yeah,
better, things are worse, things are good, things are bad, things are okay.
it's really easy to fall into the idea of like using how you're feeling, what you're intuitively feeling about a situation to decide how that situation is actually going. Whether you feel good or bad about it and not really knowing, I guess, if it's actually going good or bad. Um, you know, we're used to talking about our feelings more than our we can't really measure our feelings, but we can measure business.
Yeah. So if you're going to be, give me the number, and then if you want to editorialize on it, the number is blah 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 blah, and that sucks. Okay, or that's awesome.
Yep.
Okay, but throw the number in there. Speaking of numbers, you know what today was, Aja? You know what happened today?
No, it's my brother's birthday.
Okay, well that's cool. You had a birthday party yesterday, didn't you?
Yep. A little
So
mini party.
you know, the Federal Reserve, which is kind of the government entity that basically decides interest rates, ended their meeting today, and they announced another 75 basis points, which is like 3/4% increase in their lending rate, which means all lending rates are going to go up. And they're trying to slow the economy down to fight inflation. So, what does that mean to us? If any of us are borrowing money with a variable rate loan, your loan just went up again today. And they're telling us they're going to be raising it another 75 points, I guess, in 6 weeks, and maybe another 50 points 6 weeks after that. And then they don't know. So,
Talking to somebody who's buying a house in the next 3 weeks.
yeah. Okay. So,
Yeah, that's some stuff to definitely take into account on all sorts of choices that we're making right now. Um,
and for the last 30 plus years anyway, the smart money was when you're like getting a mortgage or whatever, get a variable rate mortgage because interest rates are low, they're going to stay low, and you'll pay less per month than what you would with a fixed rate. I think that's flipped now though. That
oh yeah,
but you're going to pay more for that fixed rate mortgage than what you would in the past. What you can hope for, and I've done this for a while and been through it. Go ahead, and if you have to pay more interest now, great.
hmm,
Interest rates will eventually come down in a few years. When they do, you refinance at a lower rate.
exactly. I think somebody said to me, you know, date the rate, marry the house. Was the phrase that somebody said to me. I don't know if that's a common thing, but that has been stuck in my head.
Never heard that, but yeah,
Yeah, date the rate, marry the house. So I'm working on finding some rate dating
okay.
right now.
you know. And if the house continues to appreciate in value when you refinance, you can like take money out of it and do other things with it if you want to. There's all kinds of options there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm terrified because this is a very different world than what I bought my first house 2 years ago, and it's very different since that 2 years.
Uh,
So yeah,
well, it can be a little stressful, but you know, it'll all work out. And I guess I found to believe that it's never as bad as you're afraid it's going to be. Sometimes, it's not as great as you hope it would be either, but it's certainly within a range of acceptability.
acceptable. Yeah, for sure. I can agree with that. I can get on board with that.
So you've been developing your presentation for the ARCSI ISSA convention, which is right around the corner, isn't it? Maybe
It
3 weeks
is
now?
2 weeks out. Three, one,
Probably 3 weeks.
2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I mean, if it's your Friday, it's 2 weeks out.
Okay, well, fair enough. I'll have 2 weeks to get ready, I guess. Um, and I do have some work to do. Um, what's your presentation on?
So yeah, I'm working on data-driven decisions. Really, really trying to focus on the idea that you can really use the facts of where you've been to help with where you're going, I guess. Um, and one of the things that I really liked, that I've been kind of like really mulling over, is the power of predictability and kind of the power of, we talk about consistency, especially in cleaning services, and what that does to us on our technician side, our employment side, on our client side. Like the more consistency that we have, the better things are. And predictability leads into so much of consistency. Like when you can predict, what you are doing, what you're currently doing, and what that's going to do for your future, and how that's actually going to, by the choices that you're making today, what those results are going to be in the future. It makes this type of work a lot more enjoyable, a lot more.
There's a couple of words you threw out there. One is consistency, and in a convention, I'm going to be giving a presentation on consistency. So, help me out. I need to know, what is consistency.
I mean, consistency. In cleaning service terms, we really talk about consistency of same technicians going to the same house, at the same time, on the same day of the week, doing the same level of cleaning each time, the same quality of cleaning each time. And it can keep kind of diving down further into how much consistency you actually want, or, I mean, whether you want it or not, people crave it. So for me, consistency can be so many different things. I focus, a lot of people.
When you say people, who are you talking about? What people?
Companies, more than anything. A lot of companies, either they value consistency so highly and they're like, all right, we send the same team to the same house every single time. And other people have thrown in the towel on that because we went through that major great resignation where nobody kept a job for longer than a couple of weeks. And, it was almost impossible to have the same technician all the time. So you throw in the towel and you're like, nope, we don't promise that anymore. We don't care about it anymore. But really, even if you're not promising it, if you're able to do it, you're able to get so much more out of your technicians and out of your clients. And that consistency helps so much.
There's a whole spectrum there. On one end of it, yes, I guarantee you're going to be getting the same person every time we clean your home from now till death do us part, which would basically be over-promising because, and on the other end of that spectrum would be, no, you're going to get different person.
Somebody will be there.
If you're lucky, somebody will show up.
Yeah.
So, how do you, how far can you go with that? How do you I mean, I'm kind of taking you off. I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with this or not, but I'm curious because I'm giving a presentation on consistency and I need to know these things.
Here, we'll help each other out. Yeah, no, I mean, so I see people have both of these mindsets. Either, we're super consistent and that's what we promise and that's what we're working towards, and others that are like, we just don't do it. We don't care. We don't do that. And what I think people don't realize is how much consistency matters. And whether you're promising it or not, everybody else craves it. Your technicians crave it, your clients crave it. And the more that you're able to make that happen, the better your, bottom line is at the end of the year. The less money you're spending on training, the less money you're spending on churn of clients and technicians, and and the less time you're spending scheduling because everything's already set and ready to go. I mean, the returns on consistency are, I don't even know how to measure them. Honestly, I haven't, how to measure the return on consistency is a whole project on its own, but there are massive returns on having good consistency.
If you think about it, on the what's the opposite of consistency?
I don't like words.
But I would argue variability. I would argue you could say change even, and there's a whole body of work out there. There's a lot of people who make a living helping people cope with change. So change and variability is stressful for people.
It is. I mean, it's not. There's the joke of like change is hard, but really change is hard.
Okay. So it certainly makes sense that if you know what to expect because you've been there, done that, and that's important to your technicians, that's important to your clients, everybody's happier.
Yeah.
I feel better just thinking about it. I'm looking forward to that my presentation now.
There you go. You're welcome. I mean, I've always had a passion about consistency, and it was really funny how it started to come up as I was, writing down my thoughts for the data-driven decisions, is that consistency kept popping up in a slightly different way. The consistency of action, and as far as working towards goals. And at Made Central, we talk about our core KPIs, and a lot of people have different KPIs that they're tracking and stuff like that. And we know what good things can do and what bad things can do. Like if there's too much of the good and not enough, or too much bad and not enough good, that you're working your way in the wrong direction than you want to go. And that's a level of consistency. That comes from consistency to get predictability. And that little marrying of those two concepts was really interesting. That if you're able to really get everybody on board internally, that now we're not talking about technicians and clients necessarily. Now we're talking about, what does this look like? What else can consistency do for you internally? And how does that help your predictability of your projections? And somebody, I don't remember who said it or where I even got this, but the idea of working towards like using data as starting with observation, working towards calculation, and then getting action off of that, and that becoming like your cycle of prediction of your success and of your growth. And we've got observation down. People have built spreadsheets and spreadsheets and spreadsheets off of their cleaning services and off of their results and where they're at. And then some people get stuck there. And then what I've always done is I've gone into the heavy level calculation of, okay, well, what does this mean if we go here? And how does this change if we do a little bit of this? And just like really working on calculating like what impacts what numbers impact each other, go together, and how changes on any of those could help change the bottom line. And then final thing being action. Okay, now what do we do with this? Now that we know what can happen, what are the things that we need to do to make that happen? And by doing that consistently, you're really able to make some really big changes on your business.
If anybody watching wants to hit us up and chat with a question, we'd be glad to help you with that. That being said, we get questions all the time. You know, Tom, what's your favorite Made Central report? And you know, I love all my kids the same, right? You know, I don't really have a favorite. But it does make me wonder. It's more of a like an observation exercise. We're not even to the point of trying to reach some conclusion from the data and then taking some action on it. It's getting ready if you're playing, you know, house cleaning Jeopardy. You know, I know my number. You know,
Yeah.
So, do you have an example in mind of how this progression from observation to calculation to action might look in a cleaning business?
Yeah. So really, I think some of the easier ones to kind of, or the ones that maybe not as easy, but if you look at like technician turnover, customer attrition, and I don't even know, just like total homes, something like that, the homes that you're cleaning, just picking a couple of our KPIs. But you can look at those through the past and you can find trends, right? That's just observation, where depending on where you're located, you might see, you know, if you have a heavy summer life, that your technicians turnover and your attrition both jump at that point. They both go high because people start leaving and running around over the summer, and they work together in tandem at least, and then they kind of come back up during school year and winter and whatnot, depending on where you're at. By knowing that that's going to happen, you're able to start helping calculate how you outweigh that. What do you need to outweigh that? How many people do you need to hire additionally to outweigh that turnover or that attrition? Or how many extra sales do you need to get to outweigh that turnover or that attrition? And then the next year when that starts coming up, you now have calculations on how many you need to do. And now you've got the action in place of, all right, in April, we need to bump our sales up really high, and we need to bump our hiring up really high using whatever methods work in your area, and outweigh both that jump in attrition and that jump in technician turnover during that time, so that when you come back in the fall, you're starting much higher than you have in the previous years, because that just sets you into a cycle. It breaks the cycle.
You threw a term out earlier. You said predictable outcomes. Mm-hmm. So the example you're giving sounds like you're using data to predict what's going to be happening in the future.
Yeah.
Think about that. If we could like predict the future, how powerful that is.
Oh yeah. And we work in an industry that there is a lot of things that can be predicted. We know how numbers, you know, once you have a level of data that you can use of where you're at, you can easily show where you're going to be in a year if you stay at that same place. And that's, I mean, it's nice to be in an industry that it is a little bit easier to do that. But yeah, we can do a lot more than we think if we're not just stuck in the day-to-day putting out fires. If you're actually able to take the time to observe and calculate and do an action that will change what you're doing.
So
where you've been.
The example you gave, you know, probably any of us who have run our business for a while, for a couple of years, a few years, have noticed trends. Maybe there's hunches, can't really, you know, at that point can't put a number on it, but you know, it seems like
versus data.
But the observation is a good place to start. If you think that you see a trend, maybe that's where you want to start pulling some data together and doing some calculations to actually verify your assumption.
Yeah. So I always talk about the difference between long-term data-driven decisions and short-term. So short-term helps with your long-term, but short-term really comes from questions like, why is this happening? Is there a link between this and this? How long has this been happening? Like being able to go back and seeing when it started, and trying to figure out if you can find out what is the problem. Like those are always the questions that seem to start that sort of short-term data-driven decisions. You're asking those questions, you go and find the numbers, and then you're able to start making changes on those to see what's going to do the most. And then that turns into long-term data-driven decisions, because now that you're able to do some short-term testing on what works best in your area, in your business, with your culture, depending on what you're working on, now you're able to say, okay, by doing this, I know that we're going to see an increase or decrease in whatever way you're trying to see it, good or bad, a positive effect in this direction. And if I'm able to change it this much, where would that put me?
So when you say short term, is that kind of like an experiment just to verify your assumption?
Pretty much, yeah. Like a monthly to quarterly, nothing longer than quarterly typically, of testing, pretty much. Because we have things that can change our, our results. We all know different things that we can do. We can throw more money at our AdWords. We can post more Indeed ads for technicians. We can, hire new salespeople. We can do different things that are going to change those numbers. But some of those things are going to be better than others for your business. Not the same things aren't always going to work for everybody. Some are. Some are very much like 100% for everybody, but those are very rare. I don't think there's many of those things that are 100% effective for everybody in the same way. So you've got to determine effectiveness of your actions before you dig deep into them, I think.
I'm down with numbers. I like numbers. I've been known to spend some time playing around with spreadsheets and going through that drill. Sometimes I wonder, though, can you drill too deep on the numbers? And, where do you get to a point of diminishing returns? How much data do you need, and how precise do you need to be? If another degree of precision, are you going to be making a different decision, taking different action? And could you speak to that a little bit?
That's a really good point. I do think that there is, the time to value is very important on when you're dealing with numbers and data, because you can go too deep and go too far. The biggest thing I think about when I'm, creating a stupid big spreadsheet to figure out what is happening is, what can I do the most consistently, the most often? Consistency again. So what can I grab that will be the same? It'll be coming from the same source, using the same information every single time with as little effort as possible. What's the easiest way for me to get that information? And the easiest and quickest, really. Because you don't want to spend forever getting the minutia of everything when it's going to be almost the exact same number of what you can get from a high level summary of the same information. So, if I'm finding myself, I might dig deep for a second to determine reliability, but I will go out as far as possible from that reliability definition to as far as possible from that, and still feel accurate, or still feel on par with it. I don't know if I have a percentage precision amount that I use, but I might dig in a little bit further, take a small sample size, and make sure that that's good. And once I know that that feels good to me, then I'm off to the races with the original number.
Does it make sense to be thinking about the action that you're going to be taking based on the data, and what impact does that action have on your overall business.
Yeah.
And once you have enough data to say, okay, well, I have enough data to know what needs to be done. And if I spend more time getting more data, more precise data, is that really going to change my action? And if the answer to that is no, well, I don't need to build another spreadsheet. And if the impact or the cost of that, if the action means you're going to be spending a ton of money, or if the action means it's going to make you a bunch of money, then, well, I think I've got enough data to know what I need to know. But it's the stakes are high, so let me go ahead and maybe dig a little bit deeper. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, it's a return on, the diminishing returns on how far you want to go. And for a lot of things, it's not, even if the potential outcome is really high, I don't think it still may not be the, super beneficial to go super deep on it either. I'm trying to think of like an example of,
I'll give you one, maybe.
maybe.
One of the things that we measure and put a lot of emphasis on in Made Central is customer churn, customer turnover. What is your monthly loss rate for your recurring customers?
Mm-hmm.
And 5%, I guess, is a nice round number that is probably average. I was kind of looking at some of your the presentation that you did for our last live event, and I think for Made Central users, it's a fair amount lower than 5%. But I think 5% is the industry average. So if you do the math on that, you can say, well, gee, 5% a month, that means I'm getting 20 months worth of cleaning out of that customer. And if I'm getting 20 months of cleaning, and say on the average they're getting 2 cleanings a month, and obviously I'm pulling these numbers out of the air. So I'd want to do that more precisely, but that's roughly 40 cleanings on the average I get for every new recurring customer. And say if every customer pays on the average $150 per cleaning, what is that, $6,000?
Mm-hmm.
Say my cost of goods sold is 50%, then that's $3,000 in gross profit I'm going to make off of the average recurring customer over the lifetime of that customer. So how much money am I willing to spend on AdWords to get a new recurring customer? If I can get $3,000 on average, would it make sense for me to spend $2,000 in AdWords for a recurring customer?
Probably not.
But the numbers would say, well, I'm still going to be netting 1,000.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spend a ton.
But your problem isn't coming in. The problem is going out.
Explain that. What are some of the other the problems with that logic? Why would I not want to spend $2,000 to make 3?
So
if I give you $2,000 and you turn around and give me $3,000, I'm going to keep giving you $2,000 as fast as I can, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So I think it would also be a measurement of what would make the biggest difference for your business as a whole. That, if you're already putting out, $2,000, does doubling it really still feel, you're not starting at zero typically at that point. You're already probably doing something on your AdWords. So is it $2,000 additional, or is it $2,000 total? That plays a part in it. And then how much would it change the lifetime value of that customer if the attrition level was lower, if your customer churn was lower? That if you were able to pull the churn down lower instead of just throwing more money at getting more people, would that lifetime value then get you that extra $1,000 without, having to put more money out there in a more predictable way? So,
right. So One of the things, averages are important numbers. We make a lot of decisions in our business based on averages, and for good reason. You need to know that,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of detail that gets lost in the averages. If you look at that 5% churn, what you're going to find is there's a lot of customers that quit your service within the first couple of months, a lot of them. And there's an occasional unicorn that'll do business with you for 20 years. So the average might be 20 months, but if that's because you've just got a couple that stay with you forever,
Mm-hmm.
then okay. For the ones that you spend a lot of money on that you lose real quick, you're not going to get your return on them. And for the ones that are going to be with you for 20 years to get you back to that 20-month average, you're going to be waiting 20 years to get your $3,000 that you were anticipating to get 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. That
So,
2000 in AdWords isn't going to turn around very quickly.
so that's an example where if the stakes are high and you're spending a lot of money, you might want to. The averages can lead you to make bad decisions sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really good to pay attention to, like to constantly be looking at not constantly, but regularly be looking at those numbers for your most recent period of time. I think we can usually assume that customer that's been with us for 20 years is probably not going to leave us anytime soon. So don't really need to worry about taking them into account on most things, because they're bought. They're so bought. Very few things that you're going to make decisions on are going to change their business with you.
As long as they see their doctor occasionally and they're fairly healthy, you're good.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, we've had a few of those. Dang it. So, yeah, you're typically good on that front, and not very few things that you're doing are going to affect their business. So, really focusing on what matters, and that's part of that intuition thing. Intuition, I think, also can be skewed by averages too. If you're taking an average on something and you're taking that average over a long period of time, and that's what you're seeing all the time, your intuition is probably going to follow that. What you believe is happening is just going to follow that average. And so it's really important to pay attention to what data you're taking, what time frame you're taking, if there's any blips along that time frame as well. So sometimes even over a time period when you're talking about putting in a lot of investing into something, you might want to just do more than just averages. Looking at how something has changed over time as well. If you are going up, going down on that particular front. So average lifetime value of a customer, are you going up or is it going down? Because if you're going to throw $2,000 into your AdWords, but the lifetime value of your customer is actually trending downwards, then your return is actually smaller than what you thought it was. So sometimes looking at that too, or it could be bigger if your lifetime value is actually trending up.
Yeah, and looking at it in two different time frames, like if your 3-month turnover rate is higher than your 12-month turnover rate, even if it's fairly low, you're going in the wrong direction, and it's going to be getting higher.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of year-over-year comparisons. And I know some people haven't been taking that information for that long, but year-over-year comparisons are huge in predicting where you're going to be at this time next year.
Really? Tell me about that. How does that work?
I started when I was with All Star. I started pulling all the things in 2018. I think was the first iteration of that. And to get, by
all the things. What?
Oh, yeah.
For For those of us who might not know what that in the world is, what are all in the? It sounds like a bag, an everything bagel. What
It
are all
is.
the?
It's an everything bagel for cleaning service leaders. So all the things at the time was, getting weekly data points for sales, quality, technicians, revenue, cancellations. I think that's everything. Payroll. Pretty much all of the major pieces of the business taking a weekly aggregate of all of those things to see how things were going over time. And we started doing this in 2018, and this pretty much exists in Made Central now as the stats by week. Is almost the exact same thing. It is extremely close, and it's almost there. We've got one more thing on there, and that's coming. So, but that's very close, and it just gives you a really good, quick reference, and it's that upper level data point, right? We were taking the summary upper level data point of all of this information and being able to see how they relate to each other. Is there commonalities? Did any of this stuff happen at the same time? Throwing them all up on different graphs of over a period of time and getting to see that, all right, for the 3 years that we've been doing this, tracking all of these numbers on a weekly basis, what's the same and what's different? And being able to see revenue trends around summertime. That's where that example came from. Being able to see technician turnover trends also around summertime. Let's see here. You're able to make decisions on the next year. So once we found those patterns or saw those patterns, then the next year we were able to start trying to outweigh them. Didn't work out perfectly, but it helped. You can do it with almost anything that you're tracking on a weekly basis or even just on a regular basis. You can kind of see where you're at year over year, and being able to take advantage of those.
So when you're looking at like year over year, and hopefully you're seeing growth year over year.
Yeah.
Is it a percentage that you're looking at, or is it like a dollar amount that you're looking at?
For that case, for those year over year changes and like trying to find those patterns, I don't even look at dollars or percents. I'm looking at visual trends of, if I'm looking at 12 months for the last 2 years, 2 12-month periods, or even two, it would be preferable for 3 years, 3 12-month periods. I'm just trying to see if there is similarities in the trend lines across those, assuming that there's growth. So assuming that as the years get further, more present, they're bigger, but do they still have trends? Are they still going up and down in the same way across the year that they were 3 years ago, even just at a larger volume? And if you're at a larger volume, sometimes those changes can mean a lot more.
So when you say trend line, that makes me think of a graph. So are you just looking at like a spreadsheet with columns and numbers, or are you creating graphs out of this so you can see the data in a different way?
I am so visual. I'm definitely creating graphs. And I think that's actually a really good point on data-driven decisions, that you do need to put it into a format that you relate to. Very few people are going to be able to scroll down a column of numbers that look vaguely similar across, 169 weeks. Is that 3 years? Something like that, close to that. 172.
Years would be like 156, I believe.
Because 52 weeks in a year, right? Am I right?
50 times 3 is 150, and 3 times 2 is 6.
Why
Maybe if
did
it's a
I
leap
think there was
year,
another
maybe
one
it's a
in there?
leap year, I don't know.
All right, cool. So 157 of similar numbers, right? They're not going to have major drastic changes maybe the top and the bottom will be different, but just scrolling across them, a lot of people aren't going to be able to see those changes. Some can. I'm not one of them. I definitely need to graph it, pie chart it, some way to put it into a visual method of me being able to see how is that changing.
So what you're, explaining here, it seems like that once we start getting into the, analysis part, the calculation part, it sounds like that spreadsheets play a role in this. This isn't as simple as just looking at a report out of Made Central or QuickBooks or anything else. I mean, you're taking the data and you're putting it in a spreadsheet and you're playing with it.
Yes, for most people, yes. I think that also becomes more of a necessity the larger people get as well. It might be a little easier to see it on a smaller scale, to see some of those changes without putting all of it into a spreadsheet and playing with it. I don't know. And I know, like, I try not to put too much focus on that. The biggest thing that's why I like graphs is that most people can understand graphs, or at least see the ups and downs in a gooder way or a bad way. So, yeah, plugging that information into a spreadsheet, looking at it in various ways, and if not, finding outside sources that can help with that.
Yeah, I wanted to go there. So not everybody knows how to use Google Sheets or Excel, certainly at the level that you do, Ajia. So does one have to be a top gun of fifth-degree black belt in spreadsheets in order to do this? I mean, is there a basic skill level that one needs? Should I even bother? If I own a cleaning business, and I don't know how to do spreadsheets, should I even bother to learn, or should I just hire somebody? I mean, I know there's a lot of people listening to this. It's like, well, I can spell Excel. That's about it. So what am I supposed to do?
Don't put your time into it. Find outside help for that. I definitely, again, time to value. The time of learning how to even get to that base level, because, yeah, I do think that there's a super base level of Excel work that you would be able to use to take something like the stats by week report for the last 6 months, plug it into a spreadsheet, and make some graphs off of it, and be able to see some of those trends. That is a step above basic. It's a little bit more than a sum formula, but mostly self-explanatory, and especially G Suite sheets. The Google Sheets for graphs and stuff like that is actually a lot more self-explanatory than in Excel, but shouldn't be too hard. But if you can spell Excel and that's about all you feel like doing, or all you're really wanting to do or capable of doing right now, time to value. Your time is way more valuable spent on the things that you're good at. Do not spend time trying to figure out how to use Excel to make these things happen, or to be able to look at these things, or play with these things. Find another way to do it. Either somebody within your business that already exists, or hiring without. People that can literally just manipulate information for you. They don't have to tell you what it means. You can probably, once you see it, you can probably know what it means. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do that. Time to value is huge. Don't spend time doing things that you're not valuable in.
So do you, if you're not valuable in it, I mean, imagine you could find people on Fiverr. I mean, there's probably a lot of people out there that are really good with spreadsheets that would love to crunch your numbers for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's, I think, what's the other one?
Upwork?
Upwork, yep.
Guru is another one that's been around forever. Maybe not as popular, but it's got a lot of people there too.
Yeah, I think I've looked into a lot of those when I was looking for extra help for me, for just kind of getting the base level of things done before I wanted to do the big extra stuff. It's like, I don't want to add all of these these formulas here. Where's somebody else that can do that for me so that I can do the fun things that I want to do? But yeah, definitely. There's lots of other opportunities for that. Because there is a level of every business is different, and you're going to have to look at your numbers knowing your business a little bit more than somebody else looking at it who doesn't know your business.
I love your model, though. It's like observation, calculation, action. It starts with the observation. So, well, what what spreadsheets do I need? What do I need to build? Well, that depends upon what you're observing, right?
Yeah. What are you seeing? What is it going as expected, or what numbers are higher or lower than you'd like them to be? It all starts there. Why is this happening?
Now, there's some, nuts and bolts kind of blocking and tackling parts of running a house cleaning business that, if you're using the right software to manage, you're not really having to crunch a lot of spreadsheets for a lot of this. If you notice your payroll to revenue is creeping up, there's, you're either not charging as much as you need to, or you're not managing your labor as well as you need to. And there's kind of a progression, a flow chart, if you will, in terms of how to address either one of those. You very well might not need to hire somebody from Upwork to build a spreadsheet for you. You just need to do the hard work of managing your business.
And also understanding how different things relate to each other. Really understanding that your payroll to revenue, we used to be able to tell when we were training and how many people we were training, like to the number off of that payroll to revenue number. And that took some time of just watching it and understanding it and knowing that that was important to our bottom line or to what we were working on. And knowing when not to worry about something too. That comes into play.
That's an observation thing. It's like, okay, well, the number's bigger. Oh, okay. Before I spend a lot of time trying to figure it out, how many people did I train that month?
Yeah.
Or that week. I'll give you another one. Comparing things like revenue month to month. That, how many days were in those months, and sometimes the number will go down, and it really felt like you were growing, and it was like, well, I had 3 less work days this month than I did last month.
Yeah, August is so great every year. Why is that?
And those things matter.
September always feels like a rough one because it comes off of two big months, and suddenly September feels like it shrunk, but it's just because of the number of work days.
Or if you're looking at your P&L, like looking at QuickBooks, and it's like, my gosh, my payroll really blew up this month. It's like, well, you had 5 paydays that month compared to 4 paydays in most months, and that'll mess everything up too.
Critical thinking on those things are really important. You can't stop at just, oh, this is bigger or smaller than it was. A lot of the why is this happening? What's the link between this and this?
So in Chicago, in 2.5 weeks, I guess, you're going to be doing a deeper dive in this discussion.
Yeah.
And if you're going to convention, awesome. We'll see you there. If not, and you're interested in going or want to know more about it, I'm dropping a link in chat. You can go to the ARCSI website, ISSA Show, and it will take you to this page. And you can register if you want to see the topics. We got our friend Liz, Liz isn't here today. No, she's traveling. just miss Liz. Matt is going to be taking us through a discussion here on 7 steps a cleaning business can follow to get results. Here's Ajia. This is on Monday. This is where we're going to be doing the data-driven decisions, and this is going to be a presentation. It's going to be fun. You definitely don't want to miss that. And there's cool stuff going on Tuesday and Wednesday as well. Take a hard look at this. We hope to see you there. So we've got just a couple minutes left, Ajia. Is there any final thoughts you think that we should wrap this up with?
I mean, I just want to say I'm super excited for convention because it's my first time going. So I'm
For
like,
real?
yeah, I've never gone before. So I'm super excited. I think I showed up for a day and somebody let me their pass just to kind of walk around the trade floor for a little bit, but that's the most that I've ever seen of it. So
Where was that? Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay.
Where's it been recently?
In Las Vegas the last couple of years.
Oh, then maybe it wasn't even that. Maybe it was a different. No, I don't even think it was that because I haven't been to Vegas for an industry event before.
It was in Dallas a few years ago.
That would have been it.
Okay.
I think that one was it that I was in. We went to, or was it in Austin?
No, it would have been Dallas. And that was a while ago. Occasionally it's in Chicago. I don't think it's been in Chicago for the last few years, but it's in Chicago this year.
I think it was the Texas one because I think that was when, and that would have been a while ago. That would have been, 2017.
That's my guess. That's my guess.
Yeah, so I think I saw the show floor for about 30 minutes, and that was my extent of convention. So I'm pretty excited about it. I am excited to get a little bit more of the whole thing, get to see some people I haven't seen in a while, and first big industry event in the last couple of years. So I'm pretty pumped.
Sweet. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It'll be here before you know it.
You're telling me I've got a lot happening right before then.
Yep, never a dull moment. Never a dull moment.
Not a single one. But yeah, no, feeling good, very excited.
So we'll go ahead then and call this a wrap for today. Ajia, as always, you're awesome. You're my favorite spreadsheet expert. I mean, you are absolutely the subject matter expert when it comes to this topic. So
it's my passion, let me tell you.
We'll see you a couple weeks in Chicago. Smart Business Moves here every Wednesday, 5 o'clock Eastern. So if we don't see you before, we'll see you again this time next week. Again, Ajia, thank you. Everybody take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.